ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the grand opening of the Southeast Bigfoot Research Organization, where we like to take a closer look at the Bigfoot phenomenon from the comfort of our armchair houseboat, presently parked on the beach of Lakeside, Oregon. I'm your host, Jaster and coming with me tonight is my co-host and co-founder, Kazari Iwakura. How are you doing tonight, bud?
Doing okay. We're hanging in there. I'd like the summer heat to fuck off.
See, that's why we went up north, baby.
Oh man,
Partially.
Jesus Christ, dude! Did you know that we're in the middle of a giant heat dome that's covering the entire country, and it's affecting the southeast and the east coast the worst?
Yeah, it was in our area last week, and it just broke. It sucked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's oh my god, dude! And I have to work out in this heat, man. That's the worst part.
Mm-hmm.
My kingdom for a cushy office job with good HVAC.
We're almost there, right? So
we're working on it.
Well, we got the boat parked out here this weekend, and we got a couple of things we really want to get into, right?
But yeah, no. As you may have heard, we are changing our name. Core Live is going to, from now on, just be the other show that we do, the video game show, which is still kind of in a development hell on how we want to rebrand it, and we're taking it in a new direction.
We'll figure it out. We got to get some people to help us out, but we're working on it.
Yeah. So, because we've been focusing on Bigfoot more and more, we decided we're just going to permanently rename this show from After Hours to the Southeast Bigfoot Research Organization. We're still gonna keep our Bigfoot geography series going. What's the new name? What's the name of our short topic videos that we just started?
A Conspiracy Corner. That was another one.
And we're gonna keep Bigfoot geography and Conspiracy Corner going. We're just going to be posting under Southeast Bigfoot Research Organization, and we chose this acronym for a very specific reason because we think it kind of represents us as a whole. Because if you read it as an acronym, it reads as CBRO. And as y'all know, we like to be casual and laid back while still paying attention to the facts and the information around here. And we thought that was the perfect fit for us.
That and let's be honest, one of us is in Kentucky, the other's in Alabama. That's a big place to try and make a localized name for.
Out of. So we're CBRO. We're a 2-man operation, and that's how it is, dog. We're still going to be doing all the armchair research we do, taking a look at stuff, analyzing audio, trying our best not to get fooled by videos because they are unreliable nowadays, and basically still talking squatch the same way we always do, kicked back with a cold drink in our hand and coming straight to you.
I was also thinking possibly bringing Kaiden back on as our quote-unquote resident skeptic. I think that would be cool.
Maybe. I don't know. He's been pretty busy.
He has been. But for tonight's big piece here, we're going to be getting into a big topic, one that we don't think has been properly talked about, in a in-depth, overarching way. There's a lot of people that have brought up Bigfoot audio and how to process it and everything, but no one's really done the deep dive, right? To really get our hands deep in the earth and understand where all this is coming from, where the basis for our research is coming from. That way we can learn from the researchers out there all across the world and refine our art, you know what I mean? So I went on a deep dive, you know how I like to do those, right? And in order to launch a project that we're going to actually announce here later in the episode, I wanted to get into bioacoustics. And that was not the easiest thing to really break into. And we were talking about it, I don't know if it ever came up on the show, but I've been trying to get into spectrogram analysis and actually work on that as a more sophisticated tool, right? And actually become better at it. Now, the big thing about that is trying to figure out how that technology worked, how to break into that field, and that was not easy. Ended up having to talk to people at K-Bro, and they hooked us up with how to figure that out, right? So, shout out to those guys every day of the week.
Shout out to K-Bro. Those guys are super cool. I'm still very, very impressed by the stuff we saw when we were up there at the what was it, Red River Gorge?
Yes.
I want to go back up there and like properly enjoy Red River Gorge. That was a beautiful area.
Oh,
Like, don't get
isn't
me wrong,
it?
I had fun up there, but like I want to go like camping up there or something. Go on some hikes, something like that.
Oh, there's tons of them up there. It's one of the most beautiful
absolutely,
places.
man. So, yeah, no. We will probably keep referencing the Bigfoot Festival for a while because it gave us a lot to think about and talk about.
And it gave us a lot of hard data points from researchers in the field to help us reference things. Like
Yeah, exactly.
because the big thing I think Kaz will agree on is that the internet is a few and far between place in trying to actually build rapport with people and everything over purely online communication can be hard, right?
Yes.
So,
Not to mention, there's way more noise out there. I just read an article the other day. 75% of the traffic that goes to Twitter nowadays is exclusively bots.
it's crazy. You're like,
Only 1 out of every 4 users is an actual person on that site now. And if Twitter's that bad, think about how bad every other social media is. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. YouTube's not technically social media, but it's part of the current sphere of the internet. So just think about how bad our info economy has gotten. And just like trying to look up anything casually. Now think about how hard that would be from a research standpoint.
yes, without
Wow.
people to talk to, or know who to reach out to is hard. And there's just been a lot of developments in the data analyst part of the subject in the last year, almost as much as we've gotten in the past 5 years, in my opinion. And I think a lot of that has to do with us not having a lot of faith anymore in video, right?
Yeah.
And so everything's going through much more layers of sophisticated technology. They're going through more scrutiny all the time, and people are a lot less. They're in general a lot less applicable to believe in a video just because AI generation. So that brings us back to bioacoustics, right? It's a lot harder to fake audio, especially specific audio in the field that we're researching. Now, a part of that might end up becoming harder as generative AI progresses. However, the thing that we need to remember is how this is used in the field today by biologists, right? And I've noticed there's 2 big ways, okay?
All right, lay them on me then. What kind of ways do you have?
I'll start with the one that you might not think off the top of your head. We use them to keep track of whales and studying whale language.
Studying. Yeah, no, that's the main thing I know bioacoustics from, because whales use very sophisticated sonar communication with each other. It's literally its own language that we only have like I think we only barely comprehend. We know
that it
exists.
exists.
We know that it exists, and we have context for certain like signals and sounds that they use, but we don't actually know the meaning because it's not. We're not whales, right?
Right. And I was talking to Kaiden about that with sea life in general. There's a lot of different species out there that have sophisticated forms of communication. Like, I'm probably going to use that phrase a few times, but
right. Yeah. No. Dolphins also use bioacoustics as well because they use echolocation to communicate and also hunt their prey.
now, like, the cool thing about it is, like, people are thinking to themselves, what is bioacoustics, right? Because we've already thrown this term around a few times. Basically, anything that has to do with a biological entity and how sound affects it, both internally and externally, okay?
Right.
So that has a huge, wide range of things that it covers. Now, this goes all the way through how a human perceives sound waves, infrasound, all that kind of stuff, all the way to how do you get that information, bring it back to the lab for further scrutinization. Now, one thing I kind of do want to talk about, right, is we've been a part of a movement, right, the Bigfoot phenomenon, where we've utilized audio technology in relation to the founding of Bigfoot research. a lot faster than biology actually founded bioacoustics. Isn't that
Really?
interesting? So,
Wow, that's actually kind of interesting because you would think that, actual hard science that isn't fringe science would have progressed a lot more into that. That's actually kind of fascinating that our, because, talking Squatch and researching Squatch is a very fringe form of science.
yeah. So,
And there's not really, a lot of funding, or because, like, pretty much all the research into this topic is privately funded.
uh-huh.
Because that's really the only way you're going to get anything done. Like, even guys like Bear Grylls, who's a big name and is researching it, he had to get his most recent project crowdfunded because if you take this to any, I don't like using the word establishment because I feel like that gives it kind of an antagonistic tone, and I'm not the type of guy that puts on the tinfoil hat
Right.
and goes, they don't want us to know.
But if you've got to play in the court of public opinion, you got to play by the rules a little bit.
Exactly, yeah, and that's always going to be the eternal struggle of this research field is finding something to legitimize it in the eyes not only of the public but also in the larger public research institutions out there, and because if somebody can get that smoking gun, just a body, something that is just unquestionably unassailable, hard proof, that opens the door to all sorts of funding and getting more boots on the ground and all that stuff. But
Exactly.
that day is kind of a pipe dream, because until somebody can get their hands on a body, transport it out of wherever backwoods holler they dug it out of, without getting jumped or whatever else happens, and then being able to preserve it, and all that stuff.
Which is a lot of hard things to do. But that's not the only way that we can establish this. This is kind of what I've understood with bioacoustics, which is really interesting. Okay, so to put it in perspective, okay, give me a second. I got to do something real quick. So there's really two parts of this conversation that I want to bring up. That's really kind of a part of the timeline here. Okay, so the cool part about it is that the whole modern Bigfoot movement kind of started in the 1950s. And then the first big piece of audio footage or audio evidence was the Sierra Nevada mountain range tapes that Ron Moorhead came up with that we now call the Sierra Sounds. Those were in the 70s. And apparently those kind of kept on happening throughout the 80s. But that kind of dropped off until 1994 whenever the BFRO recorded the Ohio Howl. So it's only 20 years from the start of even thinking about this subject that we had people recording audio. Now, biology as a formal institution started in the 1800s, okay? Mm-hmm. And bioacoustics has kind of a funny origin. It started in 1910 by a Slovenian scientist who was busy studying grasshoppers in a terrarium while World War I was actively happening around him, and managed to figure out how sound affected grasshoppers and crickets. And that founded the entire thing of bioacoustics. I just think it's a funny mental image that there's some Slovenian scientists out here with a terrarium full of grasshoppers in the middle of an active war zone in World War One. Like,
yeah, no, like kind of like the bits of dust falling from the ceiling and the lamp swaying overhead, and he's just kind of at his desk
doing his thing.
Yeah.
No, it's goofy. I know. It wasn't exactly what I expected to see. Whenever I was looking at like, oh, how did bioacoustics get founded? And I saw that, I was like, oh, I gotta make sure people know that. Yeah, like shout out to that guy. But yeah, the whole part about Bigfoot and audio is that it has been a part of its research for a lot less time, or I'm sorry, a lot more time than what bioacoustics has had relatively to studying biology. Now, the other thing I want to bring up is that the whole idea of recording things and getting them to a computer to be able to process them, whenever you see it on a Bigfoot show, right, it doesn't look very professional, you know what I'm saying? And like you see a guy basically taping an audio recorder to a tree or putting it in a hovel somewhere, walking away, coming back a week later or however long he needs to switch out his SD cards. He picks it up and he walks back home. Now, what if I told you that's basically what they do in biology? That's exactly what they do. So, like, the big thing that separates people in the Bigfoot world from biologists and what they do is actually what happens after you get home, not necessarily what you're doing. Now, the big things that you do need to understand is that in order to set up a proper sound capturing device, is that you need to be able to put it in a place that it can see and pick up audio from a hopefully 360 degree area around it, right? Now the trick is how to hide it to where it looks natural in the area. At least that's what you think. But like, I think the thing that people don't understand is that anything we put in the woods is going to look foreign to something that lives there. And that's something a lot of researchers talk about, both in biology and in Bigfoot. Now, a lot of this comes up with more intelligent animals like monkeys and apes and all that kind of stuff. So you kind of have to be more hidden with that kind of thing. However, you're looking for long distance recordings 9 times out of 10. That's what you're going to get. Very, very rarely do you get something within 50 feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what you're going to be looking for is long distance stuff. So you want to make sure that you have a clear area that has good acoustics to pick up things, right? That's kind of the hard part with the field research part. Now, whenever I was talking about this with the group, there is another member of CORE, which is really cool. Her name's Vera, and she's a microbiologist, right?
Yeah! Shout out to our girl Vera, by the way. She's fucking badass.
Definitely. And one thing that we were talking about is that there's programs out there that biologists use to identify animals. And I was like, is there any way I might be able to get my hands on them? Like, you know, little raccoon rubbing my mitts together over here. And she's like, oh, it's open source. And I'm like, what? So, turn to find out there are 2 things that can help anybody get into audio recording technology, either for regular biology or for cryptozoology, whatever you want to do. The first one is called Merlin. Okay, I'll put the app up there. That one is a AI crowd-based open source software that uses spectrogram and wavelength analysis to identify species of birds primarily, but it also has other things in there too. Now, how does that help, right? It's, you don't have to go through the hours and hours of work trying to match it to all these different species, right? You can just put it through a software. That's what forensic scientists do with DNA, you know what I'm saying? They have these giant databases of information where they can take a scientific sample, run it through it, and see what comes out the other side, right? Well, little do most of us know the same thing happens here. We got Merlin, and we also have one called iNaturalist. Okay, now that one is a little less straightforward to me because you have to take the observation, either audio, photo, or whatever you've got, and then add it to the open source collaboration, okay? And then the and then the program takes effect, and then it brings it through. It just doesn't look the same as Merlin. It essentially works the same, but it frames itself as a giant collaborative effort worldwide. And the cool thing about iNaturalist is that it's used by people across the world, especially in jungles in Southeast Asia, in order to keep an eye out for moving bands of monkeys and other types of endangered species in order to help conservation efforts. So
Right.
it's got a really cool background, it's got a really cool mission behind it. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
these things can help us, by taking these calls that we get and running them through, The hard thing I think, in the Bigfoot world to try to get a one-to-one with is going to be the woodknocks, right? And
Right. Yeah.
because those aren't biological, really, in nature.
No. No. Really, I think the process is in and of itself is a little bit more difficult because, so like, okay, one thing that biologists have going for them over us is that generally when they are looking for a species, that they have an established range in a general area they know to look in.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a okay, let's spread our net as wide as we can and we're gonna get something, right? With Bigfoots, it's like taking shots in the dark. You're firing from the hip. You put something up and you pray to God that you're gonna get something.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are researchers out there who have a lot, because like one thing is I think that is deeply hindering this, but I can understand why, is that a lot of researchers usually have their own preferred private spots that they go to that they know they can get stuff, and then they do not share that with others. Obviously, because they don't want it to get overrun with, looky-loos and, people who just don't care about the noise they're making and stuff like that, and there's all sorts of stuff. But, like, at the same time, because we're not sharing these research sites that we go to with each other, I think we're kind of also missing out on a lot of data that could be shared.
Or when they do, it's specifically with other organizations in confidence, which is it sucks. But I understand. The other big thing to bring up is that if these guys do end up telling these people where the BFRO or whoever goes out to look for their information, they're going to have people going and hounding them and messing with them in all kinds of different ways. You know that's going to be a thing. So it's an unfortunate reality, but I get it. Like the thing is that they can always share that information upwards. You know what I mean? And to people that have higher levels of verification for information that they find. Like I said, the hard part is making sure that your scientific area you're studying isn't contaminated. And that's the big reason why people get really hush-hush about where they are actually going. But like you said, there's ups and downs to it. Now, the big thing that I want to get into next is that whenever you get to a thing that you've recorded and you feel like, hey, this is weird, all right?
Yeah.
I've not seen this before. The programs that we're talking about can't identify it. Where do we go from here?
Right.
This goes back to spectrogram analysis, okay? And we're going to reference a lot of stuff Thinker Thunker talks about too in the future, because he's one of the only other guys that really is moving forward with this work in a way that kind of talks to everybody about the work that is going on. It's not very secretive, and he shows you as best he can how things work, what to do with them, that kind of thing. So,
so a spectrogram is basically, it's literally just an audio fingerprint. It is audio looked at through a very specific way. Jaster's going to get into it in a moment. And basically, it puts out the sound waves, and you can see all the raises and the peaks and the pitches and stuff like that. But see, here's what's interesting about it is that generally, all right, now correct me if I'm wrong, Jaster. Oh my god, hang on, cut this out. Oh, there we go. So like, when you get coyotes howling, if you took like two different clips of like two different groups of coyotes howling, generally if you overlap them, they're more or less going to be the same, yeah?
Yes, you'll have slight variation, mostly in individuals.
Mm-hmm.
But
like,
yes,
if you're looking at these, these two groups of coyotes howling, let's say in the same species too, and you overlay these audio, these spectrograms, they're gonna line up, and you're gonna be able to see that pretty much you have a voice match, right? Like
Yes.
And one thing, and humans are a little different because we have a lot more control over our voices, which means that our spectrograms are more dynamic, and not only that, but incredibly unique. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So, how's that compare against Sasquatch?
So, the big thing to note with audio and Bigfoot is that the general argument is that there is something out there, biological, making noise that we can identify and measure scientifically that we have no record of in the taxonomic databases, right? Not essentially that, oh, this is Bigfoot, but okay, there's a bunch of Bigfoot stuff happening in this location. We picked up audio. This audio doesn't match anything known by science, okay? It's basically, the old Boondocks, like the unknown unknowns and stuff like that. So
Right.
the big thing to try to establish is that this thing is what we're talking about, right? That this is something that isn't brought up in science, isn't replicatable except in other strange audio recordings. Okay, so how do you go about doing this, right? Like, what makes this stuff weird is that a lot of the times with Bigfoot audio, there seems to almost be two resonating pitches happening at the same time, which is something that only happens with things that have dual audio cords. Like, we only have one set, or having a throat pouch or something to reverberate with. However, this seems to be happening with almost all or most of the Bigfoot audio that we look into. The other stuff is weird, like the Sierra sounds. Whenever people linguistic analysts go through it, they can start to figure out a grammatical structure to what's going on here. There's some sort of structure to the sounds, okay, that indicates level of sophistication. You know what I mean? I'm going to keep a timer up there for how many times I say that. But the big thing to find out is this weird? Does this happen anywhere else? And if it does happen somewhere else, how? Why? Where? Who? As best as we can figure out. That's where we're going to kind of throw our hat in the ring. Okay? I think that's kind of the big part here, is that we're going to go into it. I might actually put this in here a little bit, at least a broken down version of what we're going to go into a little bit more. But we have found a match to the Ohio Howl. Okay? That's big news.
We lost our shit over it when we did.
Mm-hmm. Now, you'll probably recognize this clip because it's also been brought up recently a couple of times, and we've even covered it on the show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'll go ahead and give myself a little bit of a cut here. That way I can go ahead and get into it and give myself, this 5-minute rundown of what I'm talking about. All right. So what we're looking at here is the Ohio Howl on the bottom, which is going to serve as our control for this experiment that we got going on here. And on the top, we've got the Ramirez video that was captured back in 2022. This is, both of them ran through a spectrogram that is available on Audacity. Now, the cool thing about all of this that I'm trying to come across with is that we have what we believe to be a species match between these two videos. The big thing that we want to go over here on the visual side of it is on our control here on the bottom. We've got these long tubes of sound that don't really move too much on the frequency range individually. However, all of them together kind of take a frequency range of around 1400 to 300, and the top one has a similar range. I would call it around 1500 to 300. So that is one thing that we want to kind of come up with too, is that this does occur on the same wavelengths and frequencies. The other thing that we want to get into is that these both, while existing in the same frequency ranges and having the same structures and sounds as each other, are not identical matches. The one on the top does have a lot more variation in it than the Ohio Howl does, but I think the biggest and best way of showing you guys what I'm talking about is just playing these two together with the spectrogram for you guys to actually see. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. And I really don't blame the guy. So the thing that I want to really establish here is that whenever you listen to it, it's not like these are identical matches. Your ear can pick up the dissonance whenever both of these audio files are played on top of each other. Like, it's like playing one at maybe hypothetically a G and the other one being played at a G sharp. Okay, it's not exactly matching, so your brain's not liking it too much. That's telling me that these are two different animals doing the same call, but they're not doing it at the same time. They're not harmonizing. They're doing it in their own individual pitch. But what I'd like to point out again is that these are happening on the same wavelengths as each other. So a species would be able to make the same sound across the same frequency ranges despite individual mutations. That's a big part of why bioacoustics is used to identify different species, their habitation ranges, and their roaming ranges, all of that kind of stuff. The thing to take away here is that we've got two different sounds, 30 years apart, and hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from each other. And we've got the same kind of wavelength frequency matches. We have the same kind of structural matches in the spectrogram. But I wouldn't say it's very likely this is the same individual. Even if it is, it's not the same audio copied and pasted onto another video like what we've discussed before in the video that we're currently in. So what we've got is a species match. We believe that whatever made this howl on the bottom is a part of the same species that made this howl on the top. And we're just going to go ahead and put it on out here. We think it's the suspect individual species. So I'll go ahead and head it back to the guys, and I'll talk to y'all later. Blue doo 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 doo. You know, that technical difficulty music. Okay. So, Kaz, how excited were you whenever I figured this out?
I was super excited when you brought it to me, yeah.
I was like over the moon, because I was like, wait a minute. Even though that the original spectrogram analysis for the Ohio Howl is so old that it actually uses different colors for the spectral analysis, I brought up the modern one here in the video. This is big, okay? Because this video was just talked about in another audio breakdown. And I'm not entirely sure how far behind this is going to be, but Tinker Thunker just talked about this previously, where somebody had taken this Oregon semi-truck driver's audio recording and one for one put it on somebody else's video, okay? So we know at least that the Oregon trucker video is the original posted video, okay? And this howl that is in this video does match the Ohio Howl's type of howl. We're going to go ahead and designate this the siren howl, kind of like a tornado siren. It's kind of what I've been calling it lately. Because that's what it reminds me of. It's almost like they're mimicking a tornado siren. You know how we test them once a month? It would almost be something that would make sense to me. So we found this match with this howl, and this video has also been at least established as the original posted video of this recording. Okay, Kaz?
Yes.
So that is 2 big steps. Now, the one thing I want to throw in here to kind of muddy the waters and make sure that we are being upfront and honest as researchers is that this video, every time we post it, gets pinged for copyright under a weird, what looks to be like heavy metal music like album or song. However, for the life of me, I can't track this album down. I'll go ahead and post it below what I get whenever we get it, and maybe somebody who's a little bit better on that side of things can help that rabbit hole a little bit and maybe see if there's a little bit more to this story. But as far as we know, for right now, this is at least as authentic as it gets. The original trucker video does pass spectrogram analysis, so that's what makes me wonder, why is this getting copyrighted? Because this video does not look edited. Like, when you look at the spectrogram analysis of the accused video in the Thinker Thunker video, you can see it. You can see the cutout right there in the spectrogram. It's not hard to see. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, like, I'll let him get the views on that, but like, it's a clear, distinct difference. Okay, that's not there. The trucker video looks to be legitimate. However, it's getting this copyright infraction. So we want to make sure that's getting thrown into the information that everybody knows about as well. So that's a lot. That's pretty cool for us, is that the Kentucky Howl and the whoops from the Sierra Sounds got matched last year, which is huge. So we got one on the table here now too. We got the Ohio Howl match to this Oregon trucker video, and let's see how many people see it and what they think about it too. And we'll go ahead and let y'all know that this is going to be a hopefully regular thing as far as getting new audio. Hopefully people will help us out with that as well. You know, if you always have a comment, concern, or want to bring something up, you can always do so in the comment section. But this kind of brings us into a newer step into what we've been doing here on the show, right? Is that we're now stepping into the scientific world a little bit, like, hey, this is what we've got, so we're going to start this up by doing it as openly and as transparently as we can. Now, I don't know what else to really throw in here. What else you got, Kaz? Anything else? Any big questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to ramble on about?
So, like, I still can't get over this. You know, that there's this recording in a completely different state, multiple decades later, that sounds the exact fucking same as this other audio that exists, that everybody knows.
It's crazy.
That's crazy! That's bananas!
It's happened twice now. Like,
yeah.
If I had a nickel, I'd now have 2 nickels. You know,
which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. You know, like,
got to get our daily Lore Lodge reference in.
Well, I mean, that quote is originally from Phineas and Ferb.
I get it.
Shout out to Dan Povenmire, by the way. He's from Alabama and one of my favorite creatives. So
hell yeah.
But yeah, no, it's like I don't. It's just excitement and bewilderment and just so many. It's the genuinely geeky joy that I feel about this is immense.
Mm-hmm.
If we can get this kind of info and data more often, you can. I'm not saying that. Oh well, we have enough sound clips and we match and we play the matching game that will convince everybody it's real. But I think it's a lot easier to point at audio and spectrogram stuff and see. Look at this. Look at these 2 points of data on this chart that we have, and the look at them and compare them and how they're similar, and I think that's a lot easier to get people to wrap their head around than say I don't know, and a mid-tarsal break.
Mm-hmm. Because that's hard to explain without actually seeing it in person.
Yeah, a mid-tarsal break is such an inside baseball kind of thing, you know.
Definitely. Like, trying to
Like
convince
you know,
somebody of that is so hard, even though it's like you've got the scientific, like, basis for it.
it's like, yeah, Dr. Jeff Meldrum's legit. Really cool guy, by the way. He's super soft-spoken.
Definitely. Definitely.
Like, I've like, if you want to talk about people like I just was in awe of being in the same room as that man right there. I was like, oh my god, this is the Bigfoot scientist, and we're having a dinner in the same room as him. Whoa,
Kind of wild. But having those conversations was wild. Like,
yes,
every time somebody brought up something crazy, it was kind of funny to watch people with scientific backgrounds kind of like, oh my god.
no,
Like,
dude, it was so much fun watching Dr. Meldrum. Like the journey of emotions that will go over through his face while he respectfully stayed quiet to let these people speak. I was just like, oh, I'm so sorry, Doug. Him and Cliff Barackman, especially, were like, Cliff was a bit more obvious about like the disdain he has for Wu than Dr. Meldrum was.
yeah. And like, what kind of the two-handed or the double-edged sword about that is that that's how a lot of people get into the subject, and then like you have to fight through the mire to really get to the meat and potatoes of what's going on, right? Mm-hmm. That's why a lot of us call this a journey, you know?
Yeah.
Because you got to get through it and you got to understand it, and if you really want answers to the subject, you got to take that journey. And there's a lot going on with a lot of people on that side of the fence. Like, we don't like to openly box anybody yet. You know, who knows how that might go. But the hard conversation to have is that if we are going to prove this scientifically, then we have to approach it scientifically. You know, like,
Yeah.
the woo stuff can wait until later.
Yeah.
Until we get more stuff on the table that people are willing to understand, right? It's like, it's hard enough for them to understand that this might actually be out here, and then you're going to walk up here and talk to them about tree portals. Like, now you just sound crazy to a normal individual, right?
Yeah.
Like, someone who's not familiar with the subject. Like, there's a whole process that you have to go through to explain people the reasonable, rational parts of it before the weird stuff can even get integrated into the conversation, right? And even those weird things can get explained away a lot of the times pretty regularly. And that's another conversation that is kind of hard for people to wrap their head around. And that kind of sucks, is that people kind of want the mysterious sometimes. And like, we're already dealing with enough mystery right now. You know, we got allegedly a 7 to 12 foot monkey running around the woods. Okay, that's, but no one knows much about how to get a hold of one, right? That's mysterious enough. We ain't got to throw tree portals and aliens into it, okay? We can separate that stuff out until later. And that's where we want to kind of go. Okay, is that we always kind of been more along the lines of what is interesting on the scientific side of this conversation anyway as a channel, but I guess we're just kind of drawing the line, you know what I mean, kind of really identifying where we stand on the whole thing. Is that, yes, there are weird occurrences and weird things that happen in reports, but it's kind of irrelevant if there's no way to measure it. Unfortunately, it's cool for a story, but it's not great for trying to actually further the subject and get people to really understand what we're trying to say. So, with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and pack it on in for tonight, I think. There's been a lot going on. We want to get into a bigger deep dive of the Ohio-Oregon trucker relationship in a bigger video later, but we hope you guys enjoyed everything. This is Jaster and Kazari from Sebro, and we'll see you all later. Bye bye.
Yep. Bye bye.